Everything you think you know about Hindu mythology is a lie. For centuries, we've been told these stories came from divine revelations and ancient sages, but archaeologists just uncovered something that changes everything. Hidden beneath 5,000-year-old ruins, they found evidence that your favorite Hindu gods weren't even Hindu to begin with. Shiva? He was worshipped by a completely different civilization that vanished before Hinduism even existed. Vishnu? His stories were stolen from local tribal chiefs and rewritten. And the most shocking part? The real creators of Hindu mythology weren't mystics or priests. They were desperate survivors trying to unite warring tribes before they destroyed each other. What I'm about to show you will completely shatter how you see one of the world's oldest religions. Today, we're diving deep into the actual historical origins of Hindu mythology, not the sanitized version you've heard, but the raw human story of how ordinary people created extraordinary legends. We'll uncover the archaeological evidence, decode ancient symbols, and trace the evolution from primitive rituals to complex mythological systems. By the end of this video, you'll understand how fear, wonder, and survival instincts gave birth to one of the world's most intricate mythological traditions. Our story begins not in temples, but in the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Archaeological evidence reveals that the Indus Valley Civilization had proto-Hindu elements thousands of years before the Vedas were written. They worshipped a horned deity remarkably similar to later depictions of Shiva, practiced ritual bathing, and used symbols that would later become sacred Hindu iconography. But here's what's remarkable. These weren't sophisticated theological concepts yet. They were practical responses to environmental challenges. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro wasn't just religious. It was a community gathering place where people shared stories during floods and droughts. Then came the game changer. Around 1500 BCE, Indo-Aryans migrated into the Indian subcontinent, bringing with them fire worship and sky gods. But instead of replacing local beliefs, something unprecedented happened. They merged. The Aryan god Indra, originally a storm deity, absorbed characteristics from local river gods. The fire ritual of Agni combined with earth worship practices. This wasn't planned theology, it was cultural survival. Different tribes needed shared stories to coexist. The Rig Veda, composed between 1500 to 1200 BCE, gives us our first glimpse of organized Hindu mythology. But these weren't the elaborate stories we know today. Early Vedic hymns were practical. Prayers for rain, protection from enemies, successful harvests. Take the famous Nasadiya Sukta, the creation hymn. It doesn't give definitive answers about creation. Instead, it admits uncertainty. Who truly knows whence this creation arose? This philosophical humility would later evolve into complex creation myths involving cosmic eggs and dancing deities. But here's where it gets complicated. As these early communities grew into kingdoms, their simple nature worship faced a crisis. How do you govern diverse populations with different tribal gods? How do you create unity among people who worship rivers, mountains, and fire? The solution was genius. Create overarching narratives that could incorporate everyone's local deities as characters in grander stories. This is when the Mahabharata and Ramayana began taking shape between 400 BCE and 400 CE. Krishna wasn't originally a supreme god. He was likely a local tribal chief whose exploits got mythologized over centuries. The Pandavas may have been based on real warrior clans whose territorial disputes became cosmic battles between good and evil. The real explosion of Hindu mythology happened during the Puranic period. This is when local folktales, tribal legends, and philosophical concepts got woven into an interconnected mythological universe. Suddenly, every river had a goddess, every mountain had a story, every natural phenomenon had a divine explanation. The monsoon became Indra's dance, earthquakes became Vishnu's movements, and volcanic eruptions became Shiva's anger. But here's the fascinating part. These weren't random associations. They followed patterns based on human psychology and social needs. Solar deities emerged in agricultural communities dependent on seasons. Warrior gods dominated in regions with frequent conflicts. Mother goddesses flourished in fertile river valleys. As Hinduism spread across the subcontinent, local cultures didn't just adopt the mythology, they transformed it. South Indian traditions contributed fierce village deities. Bengali culture added emotional devotion. Rajasthani folklore contributed heroic sagas. Each region's environmental challenges shaped their mythological preferences. Coastal areas emphasized ocean deities, like Varuna. Mountain regions developed elaborate stories about Himalayan gods. Desert cultures created myths about survival and endurance. The pivotal moment came during the Gupta period, 320 to 550 CE, when scattered tribal stories, Vedic hymns, epic narratives, and philosophical treatises were synthesized into a coherent mythological system. This wasn't a single event. It was a cultural revolution spanning centuries. Temple builders, sculptors, poets, and philosophers worked together to create visual and literary representations that made abstract concepts accessible to common people. Complex philosophical ideas about karma, dharma, and moksha were embodied in relatable character stories. The genius was making mythology serve multiple functions simultaneously: entertainment, education, social control, psychological comfort, and spiritual guidance. A single story about Vishnu's avatars could teach historical lessons, moral principles, and cosmic concepts all at once. Between 600 to 1600 CE, the Bhakti movement added the final crucial element: emotional accessibility. Saints and poets across India created regional variations of mythological stories that spoke directly to people's hearts, not just their minds. Mirabai's Krishna wasn't the cosmic deity of the Bhagavata Purana. He was a personal beloved. Tulsidasa's Rama wasn't just the perfect king. He was an emotional ideal accessible to common devotees. So here's the truth nobody tells you about Hindu mythology's origins. It wasn't divinely revealed or created by ancient sages in meditation. It evolved organically over thousands of years as ordinary people tried to understand extraordinary experiences. From Indus Valley water rituals to Vedic fire ceremonies, from epic warrior tales to Puranic cosmic stories, from regional folk traditions to Bhakti emotional expressions, Hindu mythology is humanity's longest-running collaborative storytelling project. It succeeded because it adapted, absorbed, and evolved. Every generation added their experiences, fears, hopes, and wisdom to the growing mythological tapestry. The gods and goddesses we know today are composites of thousands of human encounters with the mysterious, the powerful, and the divine. What makes Hindu mythology unique isn't its antiquity or complexity. It's its capacity to remain relevant by constantly incorporating new human experiences while preserving ancient wisdom. The next time you hear a mythological story, remember, you're not just hearing ancient tales. You're experiencing the accumulated wisdom, creativity, and spiritual insights of countless generations who faced the same fundamental questions we face today. Who are we? Why are we here? How should we live?